Hey everybody, Hoang Zero here, and today we have the deck profile for Crossheart, which is the big boogeyman of the BT10 English format. This deck is extremely powerful, it has a lot of things going for it, and we're going to dive straight into it. So, we're going to do a new video format today. Let me know what you guys think of that format, okay? So diving right into the deck profile, and again, this is a new video format, so let me know what you guys think. We do have only 4 Digi-eggs in this deck. It is Pikmon. So you may notice this deck plays a bunch of different colors. It doesn't actually climb like an orthodox deck. It plays very akin to Rookie Rush, but unlike Rookie Rush, you have quite a bit of removal. You have quite a bit of consistency as well via a ton of different draw effects. So it's actually kind of like a beefed up Rookie Rush, if anything. All of the level 3s in this deck are able to Digivolve over the Pikmon regardless of the color because of their special condition box being Digivolving over Crossheart Digimon. And do note that most, if not all, of the Digimon in this deck have what is called save. Save is when this Digimon is destroyed, so not bot deck, not bounced, but destroyed specifically, they would put themselves under a Tamer, akin to how the show works when you recall a Digimon, so do keep that in mind. Pikmon is, when attacking, if the Digimon has Crossheart in its trait, draw 1. So it is just super free draw power in this deck. It's very fantastic. Generally, you don't need a 5th egg because the games are probably not going to last that long. Going into our level 3 slots, we do have Sparrowmon, who, if you have a Crossheart Digimon or Tamer, as well as Twilight Army, receive 3000 DP. So it can go all the way up to 5000 DP. And then it has the save mechanic. Sparrowmon's inheritable source skill is granting reboot to the Digimon if it has the Crossheart trait. Going into our next level 3, we do have Shoutmon. Shoutmon is one of the key parts, if not the key part of the deck. As far as pieces go, not including the actual top in itself, Shoutmon is on play, check top 3. You can add Crossheart materials to your hand. It also has the save mechanic, and ESS, it grants Rush. So how Digicrossing works in this game is you slam the Digimon from your hand, and then by placing material listed on the card underneath the hard play card, you can reduce the play cost of the card. So because you were technically hard playing the card, that Digimon would normally suffer from summoning sickness. But using Shoutmon's Rush inherit, you are able to bypass the summoning sickness, and that is why Shoutmon is such a crucial key component to this deck. Next up, we do have Starmon. Starmon is main effect, it only has save. However, similar to Pikmon, its inheritable source skill is draw 1. So with Pikmon, with Starmon, you are going to end up drawing 2, which is really great for a deck that, since you're not Digivolving naturally, you do tend to run out of gas at times. Next up into our level 4 slots, we do have Ballistamon. Ballistamon has Blocker during the opponent's turn if you have Crossheart, Tamer, and or Digimon. And that blocker is very important, mind you, in the format where we are seeing cross 4s flying around everywhere. And then its inheritable source skill, it gives piercing to whatever is on top of this card. Next up, we do have Cross 4 itself. This card is very, very, very powerful, probably the most powerful card in this entire deck. Crossheart's gimmick is, while yes, it can evolve over a red 3 or yellow 3, again, you primarily want to Digicross into this using the materials that you gather around. So whether it's gathering from hand or field, or if you have specific Tamers, gather from underneath those Tamers. So Cross 4's ability is on play, draw 2, and at the end of attack, with this card attacked, you may delete this Digimon, and if you do, put all the material underneath it, underneath one of your Tamers, as well as unsuspending one of your Tamers. This is really powerful because we can do what's called a Cross 4 loop, where you can play a Cross 4, have it gain Rush off the Shoutmon, swing the Cross 4, and then if it doesn't die to security, you can break the Cross 4 apart back into its components, put it underneath a Taiki, for example, untap the Taiki you most likely used to Digicross, and then Digicross into another Cross 4, and then you can continue your onslaught like that. So Cross 4 is an extremely powerful part of this deck. Next up, we do have Dorulumon. Dorulumon is on play, minus 3000 DP to one of your opponent's cards if you have Crossheart Digimon and or Tamer in its trading. And then on deletion save, Dorulumon's inheritable source skill, it gives minus 2000 DP to your opponent's security. which on paper it doesn't sound super impressive, but then you take into account how much value you gain if Cross 4 is able to live a security check. So the minus 2000 DP is actually very relevant in granting Cross 4 that ability. It essentially makes Cross 4 a 10,000 DP body when swinging into the security. And our only level 5 in this deck is Cross 5. Cross 5 comes from red and black, but again, if you are digi-crossing with it, it will use Sparrowmon, Shoutmon, Starmon, Ballistamon, and Dorulamon, where in comparison, Cross 4 was all of the above minus Sparrow. Cross 5 has security attack +1. It has blocker as well as save 2. It has, it also just feels really, really strong. Like, it's a pretty great way to end your turn as a finisher of sorts. The biggest thing about Cross 5 is the fact that it is a blocker, and you do have reboot off of the Sparrowmon. So that means you can play it very aggressively and then end your turn on the Cross 5 to deny your opponent value. While Cross 4, if I remember correctly, is a save 2, Cross 5, however, is a save 3. So you do, even if the Cross 5 were to die, you do get quite a bit of your material back. So Cross 4 is to generate multi-attacking as well as drawing additional cards and restanding your Tamers. Cross 5 is kind of like an end state board. And we play a 1 of Dexmon. The reason we play the 1 of Dexmon is because in this meta, there's going to be a lot of Tamers flying around, whether it's from mirror Crossheart matchups or whether it's from Blue Flare. And so because of that, you're going to have a lot of cost reduction for that Dexmon. So Dexmon's a great way to clear out your opponent's board, just in general in this format. But we do predict that we will see a lot of BT9 decks staying around, like Metal Garurumon or Grandis Kuwagamon, and Dexmon doesn't have a lot of value versus those decks. So I feel like the Dexmon count very much so depends on what you anticipate in the format. We only play 1 Dexmon in this list, just because it's hard to say what is likely to be in the format. And even versus Crossheart, which is supposed to be your best matchup for the Dexmon, if they break apart their Cross 4 and then end their turn without establishing a huge board, they do deny a lot of that Dexmon value. So keep that in mind when playing the mirror. Next, we do play 1 of Gravity Crush. Gravity Crush gives you 2 memory, and then you lose 2 memory at the end of the turn. Why Gravity Crush is such an interesting card in this deck is because a lot of times your opponent will try to play to choke you or deny you from your Crossheart play. So Gravity Crush can sometimes give you a surprise amount of memory that allows you to Digi-cross and compensate for missing pieces. So Cross 5 and Cross 4 both reduce their cost by 2 for every piece that you contribute to the Digi-cross. And so Gravity Crush's +2 memory that you gain essentially acts as a pseudo piece if you happen to be missing a piece, which can happen at times, especially in a best of 3 format where you have to just play an additional 16 to 24 games in a day. So having Gravity Crush act as a pseudo piece, almost like a King of the Swamp, like an actual King of the Swamp, unlike Shoutmon King version, mind you, is really, really strong. So keep that in mind. We play 1 Hero in Disguise. So before we can talk about Hero in Disguise, we do have to talk about Fireball. So Fireball is 2 cost. When you play it, delete an opponent's Digimon with 3000 or less DP. If you do not, draw 2. So Fireball is your primary source of removing cards such as the Psychmon, such as the Chikurimon, and such as the Solarmon in the meta, which would prevent you from Digi-crossing because it prevents you from reducing play cost. So Fireball's main role is removing that. However, Fireball also serves an additional purpose of being a generic Pot of Greed. So sometimes your opponent will throw fodder, just like any random rookie fodder, to deny you your Fireball value. And sometimes you do need the draw 2 to start seeing your pieces to cycle harder. So Hero of the Skies is a draw 2 that your opponent is unable to interrupt, and that's why we decided to include it in your list. Hero of the Skies is also able to grant you additional security attack, which can give you surprise lethal at times when your opponent may not expect it, especially when combined with the Gravity Crush, which will completely pay off the Hero of the Skies cost. If you have Cross 5 on your board, you do get both abilities rather than having to pick one. So, very powerful card. And then we do play the Crimson Blaze. Crimson Blaze is a really strong card because not only is it going to wipe a good amount of boards in this format against Bloomlord, against Loop, even against Crossheart itself, preventing your opponent from special summoning Digimon is huge. because a lot of decks they want to do that, right? Minervamon and her looping shenanigans wants a special summon Digimon. Bloomlord wants a special summon Digimon. And there's just like a plethora of other decks in the format, like Mostemon, for example, that do want to try this try this strategy, right? So Crimson Blaze is really fantastic at shutting them down. While these are one-ofs, you will probably see them just because of how much consistency you actually do pump out in this deck, but you are able to, of course, change out those one-ofs depending on the situation and depending on your local's meta. And then our last option, we do play the 3 Sunrise Buster. Sunrise Buster is a really, really powerful card. It's very cost efficient for what it actually does. While you do need a red and yellow component, that's not hard whatsoever in this deck because you have Tamers for days. Sunrise Buster is super powerful in this deck. It's arguably a card that should be hit because of this deck. Sunrise Buster is for 5 cost. Target one of your opponent's Digimon. You may play a red and yellow Tamer, red or yellow Tamer as well, and then minus 3,000 DP for every Tamer, red and yellow Tamer specifically on your board. So if you have 3 Tamers on board that are red and yellow already, and then off the Sunrise you play a 4th, you now doing minus 12,000 DP. And then if that doesn't kill the Digimon, then you can hard play the Dorulumon, or you can play an Akari to play the Dorulumon. So Sunrise Buster is extremely cost efficient for how much removal it actually provides. It's an insane security check because it will go ahead and play you a red or yellow Tamer, and we are playing predominantly red and yellow Tamers. Going into our Tamer lineup, before I talk about the other Tamers, the most important Tamer to talk about is going to be the Taiki Kudo, who is the general of the Crossheart army. Taiki's ability is going to be check top 4, choose 2 Crossheart targets, and then put 1 underneath a Tamer and 1 to hand. Then Taiki's other ability is you can Digicross using material underneath your Tamers by tapping this card. So normally Digicross, you can only Digicross using cards on your board or cards in your hand, which will, eats up a lot of your resources. But with the save mechanic being able to give you recursion value, Taiki is going to tap into that potential. It's going to, call it out of the cross loader, if you will, and then it'll start spamming out those bodies, or not spamming the bodies, but rather getting you the material you need to Digicross. So Taiki is a very important piece, not only as a consistency booster, but enabling you to tap into that recursion bank. And using Cross 4, you are able to untap the Taiki to continuously Digicross after breaking up the Cross 4. So now that we talked about Taiki, who is the most important Tamer, you are only allowed to have 4 Taikis. And if you don't see a Taiki, the game gets increasingly difficult because not having the ability to Digicross using Digimon underneath your Tamers is very painful. And so we do play the Kiriha. The reason we play Kiriha is because, while yes, he is a memory Tamer, which is absolutely fantastic in this deck, more importantly, he has the same ability as Taiki, where he allows you to Digicross using material underneath your Tamers. So Kiriha essentially functions as a pseudo Taiki, or the 5th Taiki in the deck. The guarantee that you are able to Digicross, guaranteed in your games. We do play the 3 Zenjiro. Zenjiro's on play allows you to play a Ballistamon for free, either from hand or from underneath one of your Tamers. And then, whenever you play, your turn by the way, whenever you play a Crossheart Digimon, tap Zenjiro, gain a memory. It's very powerful. It's really excellent at reducing the cost of your Crossheart Digimon, such as the Cross 4 or the Cross 5. So Cross 4 is going to be 1 cost, assuming you have all 4 material. If you tap the Zenjiro, it becomes a 0 cost card with Rush, which is absolutely disgusting. You will see a lot of lists that play the 4 Zenjiro. The reason why we cut back on Zenjiro a tad is because generally Zenjiro suffers what we like to call redundancy. And the reason why I say this is because after a certain point, after 1 or 2 Zenjiros, you generally don't need additional Zenjiros. And also, if we're playing the double memory Tamer, we also have less reason to play Zenjiro in general. So we cut back on Zenjiro just a tad. While yes, it is still a phenomenal and fantastic Tamer, it's compared to Akari, it is the weaker of the 2. So do keep that in mind. But Zenjiro is still fantastic for enabling your plays. We do play the 1 Tai Kamiya, is again a memory Tamer, so we are playing 2 memory Tamers in this deck. Tai will give your Cross 4 as well as your Cross 5 additional security attack. So versus Venusmon, it's really great because it allows you to push through, and Venusmon doesn't stop your abilities because they are both on play and end of turn. So that's really fantastic. And then in general, it is a red Tamer that you could play for free off the Sunrise or a discount towards the Sunrise. We do play the 1 Tai and Kari. Tai and Kari is a red-yellow Tamer, so it'll sufficiently pay for the Sunrise Buster's play cost, or condition rather, and its ability is during the start of your turn, if you are at 3 or less security, gain a memory. If your opponent is at 3 or less security, gain a memory. So you have a little bit more memory manipulation there, which justifies cutting Zenjiro down a tad. More importantly, it inflicts minus 2000 DP onto your opponent's security by tapping this card, which means Cross 4 will be able to break over 11,000 DP level 6s, such as the Jessamon, such as the Minerva, such as blue flare cards, and that's really great because that does mean your Cross 4 is more likely to survive and then resolve its end of turn. It also works against Cross 5 in the mirror matchup. So, and then our last Tamer and last card that we do play is the 4 of Akari. Akari, similar to Zenjiro, on play will play Dorulumon instead of Ballistamon. But Dorulumon has an actual on-play effect, being the minus 3000 DP, which is very strong at removing cards like the Psychmon again, like we mentioned before. Akari is when you play a Crossheart Digimon, tap this card and draw 1. So the draw is really important because you do need to find multiple pieces to make your crosses go off, because sometimes you don't find all your pieces, so you do have to compensate a little bit there. Using Cross 4, you are able to untap the Taiki, untap the Zenjiro, untap the Akari, and then play accordingly from there. So after this section, we're going to go on to the gameplay combos section, so look forward to that. In this part of the video, we're going to talk about the different lines of combos that you can do in the deck. We're going to talk about your bread and butter. And so before we get right into that, I do want to just make sure that we all understand how crossing works. So we see that Cross 4 does cost a play cost of 9. However, there is the Digicross text that says -2. So this -2 is for every single piece that you have. So you have Shopmon, Ballistamon, Dorulumon, and Starmon. And they have to be stacked in the order of the cards. So it has to be Shopmon on top of Ballista, and then that goes on top of Dorulu, and then that goes on top of the Starmon. Okay, and it has to be in that specific order. You can't rearrange it in any other way. Why this is relevant is because you have mechanics like the Digivolve in the game, so it does check hit, so do be aware of that. Okay, so let's say, for example, we're going to do one of our bread and butter combos outside of the actual Digicross itself. Let's say we have the Taiki and everything underneath, and we have Cross 4 in hand. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to tap our Taiki Kudo, which will allow us to Digicross using the materials from underneath. So we're going to go ahead and grab that stack, and then we make our Cross 4. We're going to go ahead and draw 2 cards. It doesn't matter what 2 cards you draw at this point, we're just doing our combo. And then we're going to swing the Cross 4. Cross 4 is going to, do all of its on attacking skills. That's fine. Let's check. It lives. Okay. Now, Cross 4 ability breaks apart, puts it underneath a Tamer, and then we're going to go ahead, untap a Tamer. Okay? So, and now we can tap our Taiki, go into another Cross 4, draw another 2 cards, put this underneath, and then we can attack again. And so the Cross 4 would cost 1, and then you also tap the Zenjiro, put you back to 1, and then you can pay the 1 again, and you're back to 0, and then you can rinse and repeat. Cross 4 ability, break it up, put it underneath your Taiki, and then you can untap Taiki, or you can untap Zenjiro, depending on how many pieces you have. So in this case, let's untap the Taiki, and then now, tap Taiki, get all of these pieces out, go ahead, take that Sparrowmon from underneath, and now we can go into our Cross 5, who can then swing. That was a 4 damage combo, so now our opponent is at 1 security, and now you have Reboot Blocker, as well as what is likely going to be a relatively strong security because of the amount of security bombs you run, i.e. Sunrise Buster, or you can just start to break your opponent's board away. There's a ton of different ways you can go about that as well. So that is one of your best bread and butter combos. Another bread and butter combo that we will end up seeing is, let's say our opponent has Psychmon. So how Psychmon works is, so all players cannot reduce play cost. So what this means is that you are unable to Digicross. You cannot Digicross because Digicrossing is reducing play cost. So how we go about this, right, is, so let's say we start our turn at 3. Let's say this is because we had a Kiriha. Okay, Kiriha is giving us 3 memory. We start at 3. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to play the Akari, put us to 0. Akari's effect, we're going to go ahead and play the Dorulumon. Dorulumon effect on play, if you have a Digimon or Tamer with Crossheart trait, minus 3000 DP, it goes ahead, pops this, tap the Zenjiro, gain a memory, tap the Akari, draw a card, and now we can go ahead and Digicross like normal because that Psychmon is no longer on the board. We're going to go ahead and make our little hodgepodge pile over here, Cross 4 goes on top, bam, and then you go crazy, and then Cross 4 breaks up, and then Cross 4 is going to go ahead and untap Zenjiro, and you like, go crazy! So yeah. That is one of your other very, very strong combos that you are able to do. So yeah, those are going to be your two bread and butter combos going forward. I say bread and butter, but it's more like the first one is your bread and butter combo, and the second one is how you deal with threats such as the Psychemon, such as the Chikuriamon, such as the Solarmon. You also, of course, have cards like the Fireball, which will be able to pop those threats as well. So again, 3 memory, Fireball, go to 1, and then you can Digicross onto them. If you have multiple Zenjiros, this becomes even easier. You can untap your Taikis, you can untap your Zenjiros, you can gain as much memory as needed. So hopefully that does give you an idea of how to start playing the deck, and then feel it out, playtest on your own, and see where you guys go. So thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. Let me know if you like this video format. And yeah, thanks.